Good evening. How are you? Well, the skies look like rain. I'm going out a little later to avoid the heat, which at one point I had 105 temperature on in my car when I was not outside. It's been in the 90s most of the day, so I'm glad to be here. And Thomas Jefferson's encouraged me to march because the temperature is a little warmer, like 80 something. So that's what we're doing this evening. The humidity is about 30 something, and the wind is at 4 miles an hour, but it's absolute stillness right now, so that's no indicator. But in terms of heat, the first thing that comes to my mind that I find upsetting is that J.D. Vance, the gentleman of the hour, tells Kamala Harris to go to hell. He said that at a rally in Erie, Pennsylvania. And why? He says because servicemen died when we left Afghanistan. And the decision to leave Afghanistan actually was inked by Trump. I don't disagree with it. But then to point a finger at the Biden administration for the fact that leaving the nation was as, well, if not as dangerous, but was certainly dangerous, that's when you have this situation and you're asking them what happened and you're not investigating it. The truth is there have been investigations, there have been hearings, they're ongoing, and it's not over yet, and some things have been identified and mentioned. So, what is this really about? They don't got anything else. They don't have anything. If they don't make it up, they can't talk about it. And the president, the former president, Trump, went to Arlington National Cemetery. And I'm going to let that marinate in my own mind a little bit because I have a special interest in goings on at Arlington National Cemetery. But we'll get to that. So we have basically, on the same day, I'll say this much about it, we have Vance concerned about what happened to 13 servicemen who were killed at Abbey's Gate. And this has been going on. And, what do these people think war is about? What do they think it was about when we were leaving, that we were in a sense betrayed by the failure to actually pay for Afghanistan, to pay the servicemen and women that would have protected us at that stage. Now we had our own independent ways of managing the departure from Afghanistan. But it's interesting, there's a fairyland aspect to this. And there is a false bravado in, it seems to me, telling the current vice president and the person whom you oppose to become president that she should go to hell. There's something wrong with that. Particularly when, I don't know how you pin the tail on this Democratic donkey by making that statement. So there's that. And I get a kick out of the fact that our great entertainer, and I mean this, Swift, has not, in this election, come out for whom she endorses, and everybody hopes it will be the ticket. But there are Swifties, that is people who are for Swiftie, who are for Kamala, and they had a telephone conversation, and they raised $142,000 on an afternoon. I think it was yesterday, and there were 34,000 people on the meeting. So we're waiting on Swift herself to decide what she's going to do. Another misconduct around the nation, and I think this will be like our hurricane warnings. We're going to be hearing more and more of this misconduct as the campaign goes on. And it appears that they're fairly desperate. And I think Texas is another example of this. I think I mentioned yesterday that although I don't know if it got to you yesterday, it may have gotten to you today, but there was the situation in which the State Attorney General Paxton is basically, in my opinion, harassing Latino leaders. And so the United Latin American Citizens have asked the Department of Justice to look into these attacks as coercing and compromising their civil rights and civil liberties. I pause to think about our Attorney General doing a damn thing. If there's a guy who should go to hell, it's that guy, because he's caused hell and suffering for many people by his inaction, by his failure to do his job. And the instant this was going on, there should have been a picture, if not of Do Nothing Garland, some member of the Department of Justice, say the Civil Rights Division, saying, we're concerned about it, these are trustworthy complainants, but we have to investigate the merits. Be in touch with Paxton tomorrow. We're opening an investigation looking into this. Is that so damn hard? Is that so difficult to imagine? What is it? The two levels of governance in America, headed by the democratically appointed Attorney General, who does nothing for the most prominent members of our society who sit on high like gods of yore, and then we don't touch them. The Attorney General of the United States doesn't have the cojones, how appropriate in this case, to talk to the Attorney General of Texas and say, get a life, cut it out, we're going to open a civil rights investigation against you, and serve a subpoena on them. Get all of this stuff, find out what they're really doing, because what they're really doing is trying to discourage Latinos from voting, trying to compromise the leaders from leading people who not only have a right to vote, need to vote. What's happening to them is just not right. I spoke to you the other day, or you may have heard it today, about how Russia is threatening to cut off our internet and our GPS. And the first and obvious way that makes sense is probably the cables that run under the oceans. But there's another approach going on, and that report is out today, and it is that Chinese hackers are breaking into big US internet providers, and some of them have as many as the files on 2 million people, or millions of people. So we're in the age of crypto warfare, of internet access, of all sorts of things like that. And too few public leaders have any idea how these things work. Now, in my own background, like a lot of people, when I was younger, I programmed computers, punched cards, wired things, wrote programs for computers, got undergraduate degrees in physics and engineering, a master's in information science, and the whole framework of computers and what they can do goes on so fast. All of those things I did are outdated. They become metaphors to understand the changes. And the guy who's my lab partner, he's made a whole living writing code and getting patents. And he's brilliant. He lives up in Boston. And I talk to him occasionally. And the one thing that I think he likes about his ability is he can do it from anywhere. Occasionally, we've gotten together for reunions in New York, and I go up to the room for a little bit, do some coding before lunch or before we go out in the evening. So we have to start paying attention to this. Another unintendedly humorous and ironic appointment by Trump is he's put, get this, RFK Jr. on his transition team. Well, what if there is no transition? What transition is he going to have when we're going to see that Trump is going down? I mean, losing. Add him to the losers, the real losers in the Republican Party that had devotion to this maniac, this criminal, this, well, traitor to American values, government, his oath of office, you name it. Now, in this context, when you wonder why you have no loyal friends, there are 200 former Bush assistants and various other, from Bush, McCain, Romney, who are going to vote for Kamala Harris. Isn't that perfect? It's just so perfect. Now, here's the thing. Let's return to, the thing that I started with in a way, and that is the Abbey Gate question. In my mind, I see a couple of parallels here. Okay, here's one. Trump went yesterday to Arlington National Cemetery and turned it into a media event in which he was involved with the family of a soldier who was one of the 13 who died. Okay, I don't have trouble with paying your respects, but when it's so transparent that the person doing it has called servicemen and women Trumpers and losers and suckers, then you have to say to yourself, well, what are we doing here? What is he doing? Is this transparently like him invoking the Bible, meaning he has no communication, no context, no connection with either? So, what did happen at Arlington National Cemetery? Well, I am concerned about this. How would I say it? It's not just philosophy. It's emotional and rightly emotional, and it has to do with grieving. My mom and dad are at Arlington National Cemetery. My mom because of my dad, but she spent time with him in World War II at some of his assignments, and he was in the Army Air Force. My uncle, my dad's brother, he fought, was captured, came home emaciated, and we think he died because of the wounds that he got in the war. Holly's dad is also in Arlington National Cemetery, and we have from time to time visited there. There is a rule at the cemetery that you do not take pictures, particularly in a subdivision, I think it's called Section 60, because those are where some more recent veterans are buried. And we want to respect and not use the circumstances of the cemetery for political purposes. I agree with that. The problem with yesterday is that Trump did this exclusively, already has an ad, and he says, while dealing with the dead at the cemetery, in the ad that they created based on yesterday, should never have happened. War should never have happened. Trump should never have happened. And a man who knows nothing about conflict, putting his skin in the game, who ran, it seems to me, to a bunker after he got his ears scratched, and luckily a failed assassination attempt, is telling the world what he would have done with the bodies of others, servicemen, whom he considered suckers and losers. If there was a hell, that's where he'd be going. We wouldn't have to say it. What this man has made of his life is a model, an extinguished values, who's actively engaged in hurting, harming, disobeying, and he does it on a daily basis. What he did at Arlington yesterday was just the most recent one. And what can we take out of it? What we can take out of it is that he's desperate to find something. He's trying to have something to counter that he called the military suckers and losers. He's trying to have us ignore the fact that by his threats of world leaders, he could have brought us closer to war. Luckily, Biden is now in a position to rely on his experience and to keep us safe as one can in a world that we now live in. When I was at Fordham and Bobby Kennedy was the senator, he came up there to give a speech. And a guy who was a friend of mine and several of us, he had been involved with us in student politics. But he was actually writing speeches for Bobby Kennedy. And he was a brilliant writer. And so John Ellis had myself and several other friends available to meet with Robert Kennedy. And when Kennedy spoke, we were, like 15 feet away from him after he'd give us time to talk with him and be with him. And after he said hello and made a few jokes about the people who brought him there, the Jesuits, of course, he then turned to the speech. How he held himself, what he said changed. All of a sudden, it had the importance of all time of America. What he said was, there's an old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. And he said that we do live in interesting times. And it's going to require us to reach down and bring up from what's within us the gumption, the intellect, the courage to do what's necessary. Well, we're at another time like that now. And in honor of Robert Kennedy and JFK and Ted Kennedy and all the good Kennedys, not that asshole RFK Jr., who perhaps should go to hell, we have an Irishman named Yeats. And Yeats wrote some of the most beautiful poetry and prose ever written. And he spoke about how it was an Irish curse to believe in things the world has never seen, to dream things the world has never seen. He said dream. And I've always thought that that phrase, from my experience, was that the Irish dream these things, believe they can do them, and because they've dreamed them and believed them, and they know they can get it done and that it's important, they do it. And that's the challenge we have today. Dreaming, that's fine. Doing, that's important. And we heard this sentiment expressed in the recent Democratic convention. So, what does it mean? Well, I put up a couple more signs today myself. I can't tell you guys to do it, guys and gals to do it, and not be doing it myself. And, I do what I can, and that's what I ask you to do. Do what you can. Write postcards if you can. Give $5 if you can. When they pester you again, if you can't do it, don't do it. You can't say no. But it's nice if you can say yes in small ways. Make sure you vote. If you have trouble getting to a place, check with the people in the area, because there'll be vans and cars and so forth to get you to the voting places. And you can get somebody to help you vote absentee, that is before the election itself. This is the most important election of our lives, whatever age you are, because for those looking for the end of the coil of life, and those just picking it up and finding their sea legs, this will define for us the freedom we enjoy or not. So when we help women who are being compromised by a government that may be taking them down first, and when we don't believe in discrimination against persons of color or religion, and when we don't think it's right to go after persons who are Hispanic, Latino, to talk about people coming here as if the people coming here are criminals rather than dreamers who believe in America and seek to have a better life. If we accumulate all these things and they motivate us and they give us the resolve, we can make America again the greatest nation on earth and bring others along with us and stop those who think it's quite all right to grab and destroy, as Trump would have it, when we would move forward to a land of promise. So that's what I got to say. And it didn't rain yet, but it's going to any minute now. So depending on the weather and the rain and everything else, I'll try to be out again tomorrow. So all the best. Bye-bye.